Welcome to Crayola Creativity Week. Today's theme is Cooking Connects Cultures. Our special guest is Eric Ajapong. Eric, please introduce yourself and tell us how you became a chef and author.
Hi everyone, what's going on? This is Chef Eric Ajapong. I started cooking around 6 or 7 years old, and I remember everyone in my family is pretty much a really great cook, from my parents to aunts, uncles, even my sister and brother. So I was always enamored by food, whether I was watching it on television or watching someone in my family cook in the kitchen. My family comes from Ghana in West Africa, and one thing about the culture in Ghana, and really one thing I love about all cultures really, is how food is always just woven into the fabric of the culture. When I think about understanding where someone is from, I always think about what food they eat and what music they listen to. All the family gatherings and the cultural events and all the food that was just always around. It was something that was very inspirational to me, and something that when I was younger, I didn't really realize how much of an impact it would have on my life right now. I think about cooking and culinary arts as one of the few art mediums that kind of captures all 5 senses. So for me, I just really wanted to capture all the senses that I could, just the same way I would as making a plate of food and translating that to a book.
Eric, please read the book Sankofa.
Friday, the last class bell rang, and Miss Boone watched as all the children packed their bags with smiles on their faces, ready to go home to their families. But she noticed that one boy wasn't smiling, Kofi. And don't forget, Miss Boone said to the children, Monday is our annual potluck lunch, so bring in a dish that best represents your family's culture. Culture. As soon as Miss Boone said that word, Kofi felt a knot twist in his stomach. He had been dreading the potluck lunch all week. On their way home, Kofi and his classmates talked about their dishes for the potluck. One boy said he was bringing in spaghetti and meatballs, another mac and cheese. Kofi envied how easy it was for all the other kids to come up with dishes that the class would surely love. When it was Kofi's turn to share his dish, he told them that he and his parents were still deciding. But Kofi knew that wasn't true. He hadn't even spoken to his parents about the potluck. Well, I'm sure whatever you bring in will be great, one of his classmates said, and waved goodbye. All the other kids lived closer to the school, but Kofi lived farther away, in a different neighborhood. Even though Kofi loved his family and all the food they made at home, their food was so different from all the dishes the other kids were bringing in. It made him feel even more like an outcast, as if he didn't belong. He was born in America, but his mother, Mame, his father, Papa, his grandfather, Nana Berima, and even his sister, Onoba, were born in Ghana, a country in the western region of Africa. He only knew about Ghana from the stories his family told him. To Kofi, Ghana seemed like a very different place than the city he was used to. They all called Ghana home, but Kofi had never even been to Africa. Home was a place he had never been to. Kofi, my beautiful son, Mame called, out from the kitchen. Bring me a palmful of fonio from the cupboard and set it on the table for us. Papa will be home any minute from work. He's been working all week and needs a nice hot meal to feed his soul. The family began eating, their conversations filling the air between big bites and delicious food. Wahunta sang, Papa asked in Tree, the native Ghanaian language. How was school today, Kofi? Well, Kofi began, the knot in his stomach turning. Miss Boone asked everyone to bring in a dish for our class's potluck next week. Kofi watched as both Mame and Papa put their forks down. Silence. He knew that this was not good. And what day is the potluck, Kofi? Mame said, breaking the silence. Monday, Kofi said. Monday? Mame shouted. Kofi, adang, she said intrigued. I wish you had told us sooner. Your father's working all weekend and I have to volunteer at the church. There's not enough time for us to just whip up a dish, and we have to make another trip to the market. Again, silence. I will help you, Kofi, Nana Berima said. And just like that, the same knot in Kofi's stomach began to twist again. We'll go to the market first thing in the morning and let the ingredients speak to us, Nana Berima continued. Speak to us? Kofi said. That's right, my dear Kofi, Nana Berima said. Every ingredient has a story, but you have to know how to listen. I will teach you. Now finish your food before it turns cold. Your mother worked very hard to give us this meal, and we shouldn't waste it. Kofi laid in bed that night looking at the moon, the same moon that hung over Africa thousands of miles away, waiting for sleep to come his way. His mind was filled with lots of thoughts. He was anxious about going to the market, a place he has never been with Nana Berima, a man he hardly knew despite being family. Saturday. Do you hear that, Kofi? Nana Berima asked. Kofi listened as vendors spoke quickly to each other and to customers. Some spoke in Tree, some spoke in English, some languages he's never even heard before. Those are the sounds of our people, Nana Berima said, as he watched Kofi look around a new world before him. When I was your age, Kofi, Min Mame would take me to the market just like this in Kumasi, Nana Berima said. Where's Kumasi, Kofi asked. Kumasi is a city in Ghana, Nana Berima explained. I was born there, into the Ashanti tribe, which means you too, Kofi, are a member of the Ashanti tribe. Am I? Kofi said. Of course you are. You are the son of Wumame ne Papa, and they are both Ashanti, just like me and my parents. But I've never been to Africa, Kofi said. You will, in time, but you don't need to go to Africa to experience it. Kofi eyed all the vibrant colors of spices. Nana Berima explained how each spice mix is a combination of many different plants and herbs. Are some better than others? Kofi asked. They're all unique in their own way, Nana Berima said. That's the beauty of spices. Each spice has their own story to tell. Breathe in deeply and tell me what you smell, Nana Berima said. Kofi breathed in deeply, just like Nana Berima said to. At first, he didn't smell much, when suddenly... See, Kofi, Nana Berima began. The harvesters take fresh turmeric, peel it, boil it, and then dry it out. Once it's dry, they grind it into a powder and add other dry spices like fennel, calabash nutmeg, grains of selim, and cinnamon. We pride ourselves on being resourceful with our food, even when there wasn't enough to go round. To make limited food as delicious as possible, we learn to use spices. Curry is a mix of different spices. Each spice is important on its own, but when you blend it together, they tell an even more wonderful story. When the duo arrived at the next vendor, Kofi saw 3 different colors of plantains: green, yellow, and black. Nana Berima explained how the green ones are unripe and need to be cooked before eating. They're perfect for making chips and fufu, Nana Berima said. And what about the black ones? Kofi asked. Taste one, Nana Berima said. Let the plantain tell you its story. Kofi peeled a black plantain and took a bite, when suddenly... See, Kofi, Nana Berima said. The harvesters picked the plantains from the trees, just at the right time for ripeness. Kofi and Nana Berima made their way to the rice vendor next. Nana Berima told Kofi about all the different types of rice. Some grains are long, some are short, some are white, some are brown. And just like the spices, each rice has its own purpose and own story. What's this one? Kofi asked. He picked up a sack of rice. That, my dear Kofi, is Carolina Gold rice, Nana Berima said. It's some of the best rice in the whole world, and it's grown in America, but it wasn't always here. How did it get here? Kofi asked. I will tell you the story. Kofi held the rice in his palm and let his mind drift. In the 1600s, our people were captured, Nana Berima began. They were led against their will onto ships, torn away from their families, and forced into slavery. To enslave someone is to claim ownership over somebody else's life, controlling what they can do every day. Before they were captured, some of the enslaved people braided rice into their hair, hoping to have something familiar to grow and eat when they arrived in the new land. That new land was America. But our ancestors were resilient. That means they had the strength to carry on, even under brutal conditions. They were still able to find meaningful ways to connect with one another, to their African roots, to their culture, even though they were no longer home. And they often did this through food. They were given very little and they only had scraps of food their enslavers didn't want. But even though they didn't have much, they knew how to make the most of the ingredients. Kofi took a moment to himself. It was the first time he heard of this story. Our ancestors brought their spices to America, Nana Berima said. They were the ones who grew the plantains here. They were the ones who cultivated the land to grow rice. Without our ancestors, these foods wouldn't be here today. This is why we must understand where we come from to understand who we are. The story of food is also the story of who we are, and you should be proud of who you are. I am proud, Kofi said. Then why didn't you tell Mama and Papa about the potluck lunch? Nana Berima asked. Were you ashamed of your culture? I guess. Kofi began. I've always felt so different from the other kids at school. And I didn't want to feel any more different by bringing in food that they had never tasted before. My dear Kofi, Nana Berima said, you will soon learn that through food, there is more that connects us than separates us. I promise you that. Now let's go home and cook. I have something I want to show you. This cookbook is our family's oldest heirloom, Nana Berima said, handing the book to Kofi. An heirloom is something that gets passed down from one generation to the next. My mother gave this to me, and I gave this to your mother, and one day she will give it to you, he said. Kofi held the book and read the title, Sankofa. In our language, Twi, we have a saying, Sankofa Wuchie, which means we must look back into the past for traditions and stories that have been left behind, Nana Berima said. Otherwise, our culture will vanish. Culture, there was that word again. But this time, there was no knot in Kofi's stomach. In fact, there was a warm swelling in his chest. For the first time in a while, Kofi felt like he belonged. He was proud of who he was and his African culture. He couldn't wait to share his dish with his class. Now let's get cooking, Nana Berima said. We've got a meal to make. And so the two began cooking, letting the ingredients speak to them. Monday. This is jollof. This is a dish from Ghana, my home in West Africa, Kofi said to the class. And I have a story to tell you about all the different ingredients in this dish. Mrs. Boone watched as Kofi told the story of his people, of the dish, and of his African culture to the class. A great big smile ran across Kofi's face.
Wow, what a beautiful story! Eric, what inspired you to write the book Sankofa? And what main messages do you hope kids remember from this story?
My folks came from Ghana, West Africa, to America in the late 80s and had me. So I'm the first person in my family born here in America, in the States, and growing up in a very traditional West African home, and then also growing up as a New York City kid, I grew up with so many different cultures and people around me, but often felt sometimes ashamed about some of the stuff that my culture had to represent. So this book has a lot to do with those personal memories of me and just kind of finding self and finding belonging. Then also, I grew up, in a very eclectic neighborhood. So what made me feel like I belonged was going to my Jewish friend's home, or my Puerto Rican friend's home, or my Caribbean friend's home, and getting all that different food and exposure to different cultures immediately, especially at a young age, was so helpful for me to be resilient now, because I think I, as an adult, look at different cultures and I can sympathize and I can understand and also know what it feels like to be misrepresented, to not be heard, to have struggles internally, especially with different cultures as well. So I think I get a little bit of that from the best of both worlds, coming from an immigrant family, but then also growing up in New York City. The main message that I want children to get from this book is a sense of belonging. The things that might make you feel different are actually your superpower, and the things that actually can separate you apart from anything else. So whether you're an artist, a painter, a chef, a musician, an audio team, a visual team, whatever, you get super good at it, and then you can add your culture, add a little bit of where you come from, a little bit about your family's history. And I think when you can blend those two things together, one, you become extremely valuable, you set yourself apart, and you make yourself unique. So I wanted to do that, not only with cooking, but then also bringing my culture side with it as well. And we have Sankofa to show for it. Sankofa's subtitle is called A Culinary Story of Resilience and Belonging. And the reason why it's subtitled that is there's an actual quote in the book from Nana Berima to Kofi, which reminds him that food brings us together a lot closer than it separates us. And I really wanted that line of resilience and belonging to resonate with not only people from West Africa or people who may look like me, but for anyone who may feel a little bit of that kind of outcast or a little bit of anxiety between their culture now and blending cultures as well. So it is a story about food and celebrating food and having a little bit of pride through your food. And again, through culture as well.
I'm excited that Eric will share the first art activity, similar and unique.
All right, we're gonna start doing some creative drawing. Jollof rice, the classic West African dish. We'll start right here in the middle with the big bowl. And jollof rice tends to be a little red. So we're gonna draw some like orange little grains. You can use these markers and crayons to draw something from your culture and something that you may like to eat or enjoy doing with your family. So what's the ingredients in jollof rice? We have a bell pepper. So we'll draw a bell pepper, and the bell pepper has a little top on it, like a little green top. We'll do an onion because that is in there too. So the onion's pretty white. It's got a little like frizzy stuff here and frizzy stuff here, and then it's got some lines. We have tomatoes. So we'll do a little red tomato, little Roma tomato here, maybe a little brown to kind of signify the little end of the tomato right here. And then we can color it in. And then you have all the spices that we talked about in the book. The curry spice, so maybe we can draw a little jar of curry, right? And then we can put some cool spices in there. So we're gonna add some more greens because Mom says you always have to add some greens in your food. So we'll add a little bit of salad here and then maybe a nice big steak. We'll do T-bone steak right here. Let's get a little bit of like grill marks maybe. Some X's here. This is my drawing of jollof rice. We have our jollof rice here. We have a nice little T-bone steak. We have a salad here. Pepper, onion, tomato, if you can make out of it, and a little bit of spices as well.
Thank you, Eric. Your book is called Sankofa, and there is a symbol that is often associated with that word. Could you show us how to draw the Sankofa bird symbol and tell us what it represents?
So I'm gonna be drawing the Sankofa bird. Sankofa is a Adinkra symbol from Ghana, West Africa. Now, the Adinkra symbol comes from the Ashanti tribe in Ghana, where my family's from. And these symbols, there's so many different symbols, but this one specifically means that it's not bad to go back and make right, or to fix, or to be inspired by your past. So the Sankofa bird, especially with this book, means so much because Kofi, our main character, is inspired by the past to make a delicious meal for his class. So I'm gonna draw the Sankofa bird myself. We'll start off with the neck. We'll come around, we'll get some legs. And then we'll try to get some feathers. And then we'll come in, a little bit of that neck. So we have the eye of the bird here. And then the bird has these beautiful feathers. Some are red, so we'll put some over here. We'll do a little bit of orange feathers here. And then we'll do a green feather here. And then we have a nice big feather here that's red. Maybe we can color that in as well. So we'll add some more feathers towards the tail end of the bird here. And then maybe like a little yellow feather just to kind of add some more color. And then the bird itself is black. So we'll just kind of like do a little bit of that. You can draw something from your culture, something that inspires you, some piece of art, but make it nice. So I'm gonna take my time and I will see you guys later. This is my Sankofa bird.
Thank you, Eric, for helping us see how food connects us to our cultures and communities.
Crayola Creativity Week has been so much fun for me. I've been having a blast with all these amazing products from Crayola to work with. I can't wait to dive in with my daughter. Thank you so much for stopping by. Peace.
Parents and educators, be sure to check out more creative ideas at Crayola.com/creativityweek. And remember to share kids' artwork. Post a photo on social media using hashtag Crayola Creativity Week for a chance to win today's amazing giveaway.